So our first question, a Just Stop Oil party has been disrupted by protesters. Is it true or false?
Wow. This is one amazing. This is an amazing story. It really is. So it's Just Stop Oil reception, isn't it? For like they were kind of celebrating all the really hard work of sitting in the road and annoying the entire country.
They were celebrating everything that they've done really well, and also thinking very seriously about the planet going.
It was quite an interesting, but I have to admit, a reason to have a party. But you know, I'm not really one to judge. But no, honestly, but I found out that it was actually done by 2 YouTubers. And they've got like a big following and stuff. I watched the video and I was absolutely astounded as to how much effort they put into it. Like they had to send like a mole in undercover to get in all the WhatsApp groups and everything. They put some real effort in, I have to admit.
Funnily enough, Archie Manners, I don't know the other chap, Jordan Peters, but Archie Manners I do know. I used to work with him in the House of Commons, and he's a magician, so he's a really committed kind of guy.
Yeah,
you know?
You really got the vibe of that. But one thing I found quite interesting was there's a great line in it, and I think it was not Archie, but the other one. He said, I didn't want to be the person to go undercover because he was too scared he might get recognised. Not because he was too famous, but because he went to school with all of them, which I thought was hilarious.
But I thought the funniest thing was when you saw the party, it looked exactly how you would imagine.
Yeah, it did. It really
everything that was in my head about how they socialised was exactly how it actually imagined.
Do you know something, Emma? I remember talking to somebody who'd been in the Young Liberal Democrats. I think they're called the Liberal Democrat Youth and Students, and they said for their annual conference, they used to hire like a church hall like that was in, but they all used to sleep in there as well and have sleeping bags. And I thought, that's hideous. At a young Conservative event, we'd all check into local 4-star.
But it does beg the question, quite how undercover did he go? I mean, was it like, you know, the police got done for having babies and stuff?
Yeah, no, but...
you know, that literally under the covers, you know?
I found it quite funny because apparently the day before the morning of any of the protests, apparently they all meet at the local Pret a Manger, which was like, well, that's very on brand for them, isn't it?
Isn't that owned by McDonald's?
It is owned by...
yeah, that's so, you know, under the radar.
Non-reusable cups.
It's all done through this app called Signal, which is the police can't really intercept any of the messages and stuff. And I was like, I was really surprised as to how just kind of covert all of their stuff actually is.
I've got to be honest with you, Pete. And look, I don't know. I'm not an intelligence expert. You just may be surprised by that. when like MI5 and the Metropolitan Police come on the TV and go, oh, it's terrible, WhatsApp, we can't hack it. It's terrible when terrorists use WhatsApp. You think... Would they say that if that was true?
No,
that's a fair point, but no. It was honestly, but no, it was nice to see them get a taste of their own medicine for a change, and I found it very funny, the reaction of I presume the host of the party was like, well, they're probably paid by the Daily Mail. I was like, oh, come on, just take
this
take
is
this
a
on the
globalist
chin.
conspiracy.
But here's an interesting question for you, Charlie. Look, I don't think that this would have been popular amongst young people, and presumably these YouTubers are aiming their videos at young people. I don't think this sort of protest would have been popular amongst young people, say, 6 months ago. Is the world starting to change for Just Stop Oil?
I'd like to think so. I think there's still a lot of, again, particularly young people who are, I don't know, very bought into their message. But as the actual quality of the protest goes, I think theirs was far higher than Just Stop Oil's, because theirs tends to be sitting in the road, spraying paint on buildings. But the actual, you know, the alarm going up, you know, we don't know whether it's true or false, of course, but the alarm going up in the church, that was genius.
Were they rape alarms?
Yeah, it was something like that, yeah.
Well, they're not actually. They're general attack alarms, but I'll tell you something. When I used to work at Westminster City Council, we used to give them out to people. You pull the pin out of one of those things, and I'll tell you, you can't even get close to it. They're really, really loud.
I've always got one in the bottom of my bag, and I think if anyone did try and attack me, I'd say, look, can you just hold on a minute? Right? I just kind of like rummage through the bottom of my bag to find my rape alarm. Yeah, just give it a sec.
No, but it's funny you bring this up, because I looked at some of the YouTube comments and their Instagram comments and stuff, and are you all right? There was a significant backlash from younger people who I imagine watch their YouTube more than I do, and they were like, oh, I think you're on the wrong side of history on this one. No. What are you doing protesting this? And it was quite interesting where you had some people who were also like, oh, this is great, it's taste their own medicine, who were also of that kind of age demographic. I was like, there is still a bit of a split there. And they're not as popular with the youth as people would think, but it is still there.
Always remember as well that the people who are most likely to be vocal about this sort of thing are the people who are kind of into the virtue signalling, appealing to be, as you say, on the right side of history. So I think the kind of, you know, that phrase, the silent majority, is very much the case.
Hang on, Charlie. I want to just stick with that for a second, Charlie, because you've just been to university.
Yes.
You just finished. Congratulations. Have you actually managed to graduate?
At last, yes.
Hey, well done.
That was a reference to marking protest, not the standard of work that Charlie produced over the years. But you can see he didn't spend all of his time getting drunk in the student union. He was mainly at the manicure place. No, you're into cage fighting, aren't you?
Yes.
In real life.
Yeah.
How you've got a face like that when you're into cage fighting?
He hasn't been doing it long.
No, I like to think it's a testament to my ability.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely right. Yeah,
But on a serious note, look, we always get the impression that with universities, it's all woke now. You can't go to university unless you pretend that you're into all of this stuff. Is that true, or is it a bit of a myth?
You will be the minority if you do voice anything approaching a conservative opinion on things. But I mean, you know, I found it very enjoyable to kind of have back and forths with professors and students alike.
Is the reason you were able to express your views because you're into cage fighting? And people are just very reluctant.
Maybe. No, but I mean, you very much get the sense that you are in an institution that considers you an enemy. But I mean, nevertheless, it's not all hope is lost because there's plenty of people.
So
who are
you were the
sensible.
rebellion then, isn't it interesting how the rebellion is now to be conservative or libertarian?
But it's crucial to understand this because I think most people, when you talk to them, they will see, OK, we have a conservative government, and...
Yeah, that's a joke, isn't it?
But they don't...
Do you know something? I always wanted to be an on-comedy.
But, you know, they see that the right are in power, and so they think to be left-wing still is the kind of rebellious, you know, young person's thing.
No.
But actually, they don't recognise that all of the institutions of power, the universities, the NGOs, the governments, are left-wing in their outlook on life.
Okie dokie. Right. So is it? I mean, and there's just no point asking this. But I'll tell you what I think we can do. I think we can say whether it's true or false. Is it true or false that a Just Stop Oil party was destroyed by protesters? True or false?
True.
It's absolutely true. And I think, to be fair, we will give you a bonus point for knowing that they blamed the Daily Mail completely unfairly. OK, so the next question is this. Sadiq Khan is planning to end sexism in London. Is it true or false?
Oh,
he has a fantastic strategy, you've got to give him that.
Yeah.
Well, come on then, tell us about the strategy, Charlie.
Well, the strategy to end sexual violence, you know, and misogyny and so on across London is to say mate.
Oh, no, isn't it? Mate.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So hang on a second.
So Essex men should be good at it.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are people from Australia?
There you go, me.
Me.
Yeah, Sadiq Khan. Yeah, because he's done so well with everything else in London. He can end sexual violence and all of that.
But Lois, isn't this a great idea from his perspective? Because what he can do is just waste taxpayers' money putting adverts up to hopefully garner more support from the wokerati when it comes to the next mayoral election.
It's very hard to be against the premise.
Yeah.
So I think that's the same thing that he's doing with the TfL stuff as well. He's constantly putting out things that are based just propaganda for Sadiq.
I often wonder, Emma, whether we're all being forced into being completely unreasonable. Because if you don't believe in getting rid of police funding, they go, well, you believe that black lives don't matter.
Yeah,
and you think,
exactly.
well, where did that come from?
But how can he be pro-women and pro-women's rights when he's very, very pro the extreme trans ideology, which takes away women-only spaces? It doesn't make any sense.
How is he defining who he's protecting? With
Oh,
this?
exactly. I think I'd rather be wolf whistled at than have blokes in my changing room, like, you know.
What about blokes?
Mate!
what about
We should try that next time there's trans people in our changing room.
Lois, what about blokes in your changing room who wolf whistle?
Well, that's all right. Especially if they've got got gifts.
I was just wondering.
What gym are you going to? How can I get involved?
I'll send you the telephone number.
I just love the way you prioritised your vanity over your actual personal safety.
I could say this isn't the first time we've seen one of these kind of empowering men to tackle sexism. Because if everybody remembers the Gillette advert, you know, the shaving foam.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think it was a Christmas advert or something like that, where it was, again, this idea of men calling out other men. And I was
best men can do.
because that campaign worked brilliantly, didn't it?
The complete definition of go woke, go broke. In fact, I think they might have even come up with that slogan around the time of the Gillette advert.
Yeah. But no, honestly, this was patronising. I don't think it's going to work. It's just, for me, this is let's do anything but talk about you, Les.
Yeah.
It was very convenient how this campaign has come out. But it was launched with Glamour magazine. And I found that quite interesting because I'm like, does everybody remember a time when these women's mags were known as the problem for women? Like, you know, because they're all airbrushed and everything was all certain sizes and stuff. And now they're involved in this campaign. And I think the Lad Bible as well, they're in on this.
And now
so it's quite a
body
few.
confidence
yeah,
now,
it's,
so
it's
like
absolutely fascinating.
It's
but the thing is, this body confidence thing, I'm confident that if I stopped drinking Stella Artois, I'd lose weight. Right, but beyond that, I mean, it's sort of like, well, we don't know why you're fat. It's the cakes.
Yes.
Well,
I'm not
I tell
joking,
you
it's the
what, I'd
cakes.
much rather look at magazine image of a fit, good-looking woman or man than there's them great big blobby, disgusting people.
All right, love.
No, but like, it's, you know, hang on a minute.
Cut me, I'll bleed.
Who wants to look at some great big munter in a bikini?
All right.
I don't know.
Oh, listen.
Well, I've never seen you in a bikini, Andre.
Well, that's
Next time.
only because you've never been to my favourite nightclub, where in fact I've been cage dancing. See,
You were
Rosie-
there, weren't you?
No,
I was cage fighting,
He was
not
fighting.
dancing.
Charlie was fighting his way out of the cage.
I think something else worth noting with this story, though, is it's one of the most like absurd examples of the science being used to back up a regime policy, because there's this whole like research behind the mates policy saying the extended vowel sound and the hard stop of the T is like more impactful.
Yeah,
and
because
so
they
on.
brought in
Although-
like proper behavioural scientists
Yeah.
for the campaign and everything. It's done by an outside advertising firm. I can't remember what they're called.
say
But
Avatar?
I'd love to know how much it's cost the taxpayer.
I'd love to not know how much it costs.
It's just reassuring to know that at last we have a solution to the, you know, for example, the child grooming gangs that exist up and down this country.
You just say
mate,
mate.
just say mate.
Mate.
Yeah, that's right.
We did this before. I mean,
I know.
really,
I'll tell you
really
what.
is a genius.
I'll tell you what I'm willing to do. I'll tell you what I'm willing to do, Emma. Right. I'll tell you what you can do. You can go round the areas that have been prone to child grooming. I will loan you a megaphone. Just go.
And then if they run, you'll know who the criminals are. The police don't even
No,
need
that's
to do
right, that's
anything.
right.
Just Stop Oil can stop the police. They'll be fine.
Emma, what will happen is you get a team of people together, go, "Moot," and then the ones that leg it, you know, it's them. Get them. They're the ones,
But the thing
ones
is,
that
if it
stand-
doesn't work, that you'll have to wait a minute for me to get the rape alarms out. They're all at the bottom of the bags.
Now, guys, forgive me for saying, but I don't think this is going to work.
No way, really?
So I'll tell you what. I'm not being funny, and I'm not being flippant about this because it is a serious issue. But how many sex offenders walk past a billboard and go, "Must stop doing it now"?
Yeah, I know.
It's not realistic.
I think the idea behind it though is it's for you. Say for example, if you said something, it's for me to call you out.
Oh,
on it.
you wouldn't have to.
But no.
No, I'm sorry. We'll nip in that in the bud. Nipping that in the bud.
No, but it really strikes me because not so long ago it was always like, do you remember it was like all men were potential rapists and all men are a potential threat, and now suddenly you've got to rely on all these men to suddenly call this out.
to
And it's like,
police each
well, wait a
other.
minute,
Yeah.
there is somewhat of hypocrisy here going on.
Pete, it reminds me of when I think it was Ken Livingstone proposed that they'd have women-only tube trains, and you think, well, tube carriages. You think, well, that's fine until one bloke gets on there, and there's like nobody else to help.
But no, but this is, and it's kind of a serious consequence to it because I think this is where it's going to end up going.
Segregation.
It's going to end up with a proper segregation, and I think these kind of. Whilst we joke about it, I think there is quite a dangerous consequence to them that we have to be we do have to take seriously, and we rightly should be calling it out.
And it's assuming that all men are potential.
And that's
Most men are absolutely lovely. Absolute nonsense.
You
men.
love men.
I don't have any problems with men whatsoever.
Lois, how many men have you loved in your time?
You are in trouble. Not you anymore.
No,
You're
you.
No, it's joking
And
aside.
that was the joke you thought it was. Anyway, okay, so we've got to move on. Has Sadiq Khan
You're so
planned? I just don't care. Has Sadiq Khan planned to put an end to sexism with billboard adverts? Is it true or is it false?
I think it's true. Yeah,
It's
true.
a yes from
It's
us, Andre.
absolutely true.
Hey.
Right, put your head on. It's time for the scores from the Woke
no!
Rabbit. No,
Hey,
Nick,
Lois.
Hey, hey.
the woke, yeah, mate. Okay, Woke Rabbit, look at me. Okay, so what have you been up to this week?
Well, I was at this lovely banquet for my organisation just stopped oil, and it was interrupted by protesters.
Oh, what a shame. What a shame. Well, look, you're very worried about the state of the country at the moment.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, literally, the earth is melting, and people are trying to interrupt our vegan banquets. I'm not having it.
You're vegan.
Vegan. Okay, well, what are the scores then?
5 points for Peter and Ems, and 10,000 points for Lois.
Hey! And
Charlie.
And Charlie.
I'm feeling very upset.
All right, get lost. Get out. Get out.
Andre Walking.
Today, have idiotically sent me out on the streets of London to talk to people and find out all about climate change and how they're dealing with the hot weather. This is going to be brutal. I want to know whether you are worried about climate change and this hot weather.
Not at all, sir.
And what are you doing to deal with the hot weather?
I'm just wearing less clothing and keeping a bottle of water in my bag. It's very simple stuff.
What are you doing to mitigate the heat? I can see you stretching out.
I'm in a short and t-shirts. I'm drinking plenty of water, and I'm not worried about the overall effects of climate change. So I've got no children, and I'll be dead within 20 years.
So you're at the door of Bridget Jones's house. Are you worried about climate change?
Of course, we're all boiling over. I'm Ginger, I'm going to burn in this heat. I'm not going to live well.
Excuse me, I'm making a show about climate change. Are you worried about climate change?
No.
Are you worried? No, they're not worried about climate change. They're not worried about climate change. I don't think they were that keen to chat. Let's chat to some people this way. Now, I noticed there's a weather tattoo there.
Yeah.
Mind you, you've got Betty Boo as well.
Climate's been changing for how many billion years is it? And all this hysteria about a subtle heat wave, we've got some kind of emergency, it's man-made. Absolute nonsense. You know, we produce 1% of the CO2 in this country, and we're all buttoning down. CO2's only a tiny part of it.
What is the craziest idea anybody's given you to stay cool in the hot weather?
Like,
Would you put your head in the fridge to stay cool?
sometimes I do.
The ice cream man said he'd put his head in the freezer.
As you see, I'm wearing shorts terrifying the neighbours with my lolly legs. And,
Your legs are okay, actually.
Oh, great.
No, I think, but you don't hold the political views I would have expected from a man who wears sandals.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about the current hot weather and climate change?
Yes, I am concerned about the current hot weather and climate change.
Today is a beautiful day. You're having a nice beer in the sun. I think this is absolutely fabulous, and yet everybody believes they're going to die.
Nobody believes they're going to die.
Are you worried you're going to die from climate change?
Yes.
When will you die?
Yeah.
We know nothing about the climate per se. Top professors will say this, and we're pretending we do, and we want to spend trillions trying to save the planet. Climate change is a bit like the human mind. We still don't know much about that, despite Freud and Jung.
You were on the show last week, and we don't know each other. We've just walked up to you.
That's right, correct.
Okay, well, look, are you worried about climate change?
Who isn't? Who isn't?
Me. What would you say to me if I said to you that the reason the Ice Age was defrosted was global warming and Neanderthal man didn't have a 3-litre Volvo? Neanderthal man didn't have a 3-litre Volvo. They've struggled to explain that.
Very good point. Kevin, over to you. We were just talking.
They don't make a 3-litre Volvo.
There were no 2.5-litre Volvos then. There weren't.
Point taken.
I've seen kids running around the streets, and I believe it's child abuse, by the way, running around the streets going, "You'll die of old age, we'll die of climate change."
Thank Greta Thunberg for that hysterical, economically illiterate Swedish teenager.
I mean, you've got people like Bono, who's always mouthing off about the climate and all that. As soon as they get off the mic telling us what to do, they're in their big Jags. And
do you believe that Greta Thunberg was right to go by yacht to America and fly her staff out on first-class planes?
No, complete contradiction in terms, isn't it? Let's figure, it's like the Davos crew. They all fly out in their chartered jets, you know, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab and his bunch of dodgy compatriots.
I wasn't expecting him to say compatriots, if I'm being totally honest.
Comrades.
It's the reason you've not had children because you're worried about it.
No, it's because I ain't had a proper sex life.
And why do you think you haven't had a proper sex life?
Because I'm an ugly.
Well, that's it. The end of the day. We've talked to loads of people about climate change. They have their idea for how to keep cool. I've got mine, and it's this. was a soft drink.
Andre Walking. Welcome back to That Was the Woke That Was.
Greg's the baker has banned Nigel Farage because apparently he doesn't align with their values. Is it true or false?
Oh, wow.
I mean, I really hope this is
Yeah,
true. Their clientele is the most pro-Nigel Farage clientele that I could possibly imagine.
Yeah. But no, he's had quite the interesting week, hasn't he? Good old Nigel again.
It'll be about as successful as the Bud Light advert.
Yeah, he can go into Greg's. The problem is he can't pay with the bank card.
So this is the thing. Nigel's fine, I think, been vindicated with his coots and being debanked and all the rest of it. There's a big expose, and I just...
Sorry, Pete, you say vindicated, but he still hasn't got the bank account back.
Oh, no, so that's the funny thing. Everybody thinks that Coots has apologised and the NatWest group. If you actually read that apology letter, there's not really anything in there saying like, oh, we're sorry about the comments that were made about you. Not that we took away your bank account. And we see this all the time. The BBC and Tim Davies one was exactly the same. We're sorry about how we went. Not that we did something wrong.
Emma, is it we are sorry we got caught?
Yeah, definitely. It's the kind of the equivalent of in politics, where they say, I'm so sorry for the mistakes of my civil servants, which I had no knowledge and was not involved in. But I'm here to take responsibility for how awful they are, but I'm also not going to resign.
Yeah, it's absolutely... I find it extraordinary, but it's the way that they aren't interested. But of course, Lois, the good news is for all of the bankers, and I did say bankers.
You did say
I
bankers.
did say bankers.
Yep.
OK, but the good news is for them is that the taxpayer owns the bank, so if it all goes badly wrong, they can just hand us the bill again.
Well, absolutely, but Nigel, I know, will be hurt and hit hardest by this Greg's ban. I think this will be the icing on the cake. And
Can I tell you my great Nigel Farage story?
Please.
Right, I've never told this on TV, but this is absolutely brilliant. I remember I used to work in the European Parliament, and we used to go drinking in Place Luxembourg outside. And Nigel Farage always get out of it. Nigel Farage would always be there having his pint, and I saw him one day having a pint with Aaron Banks, and there used to be this accordion player, but he couldn't play. Right? Like this, and he goes, look, how much is it for one song? And he went, €5. I said, I've got a friend who loves the accordion, but he won't admit it. I want you to play all three songs, €15. And he went up and I was like, hello, no, thank you. In his ear for 15 minutes. In the end, he was going, F off now, F off now.
The more he protests, that's definitely showing that he loves it.
We need to get the accordion player and send them to Coots.
No, we absolutely, definitely do. But, it is funny, but it's also extremely not funny. And all these people that are are supporting the decision, how long before it's them?
Yeah.
You know, how long before left-wing views are not... Because you'll set a precedent,
Charlie, do you worry? I hate to just focus on the sort of youth element to it. But you've got to worry, going into your first sort of proper job after leaving university, that there is a risk now of you not getting a bank account properly or them getting rid of you, not having a mortgage, which is going to be a major problem for you in the next couple of years. I mean, it's got to be a worry, right?
I mean, the prospect of buying a house is basically off the table, so I'm not that worried about that. No, but it is very concerning because we are sort of descending into this society where the wrong opinions will have you debanked, deplatformed, cancelled, whatever you want. And I don't know, that is very worrisome. Now, I will say, I have to sort of, I have to keep myself on a leash on this sort of thing, because part of me does think it would be nice, you said about setting a precedent for left-wing types, thought it would be kind of nice to see that.
No, you mustn't. No, we mustn't be as bad as them, must we?
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah,
But no, I mean, it's what this story is it's a complete victory for the right in the final analysis, because Nigel Farage has won here. Sure, he hasn't got his bank back yet, but he's had an apology from the BBC. He's had the so-called apology from Coots, and he's plunged the bayonet. He's just not stopped. He's continued.
But do we think that this is going to result in anything?
One hopes it does lead to legislation of some sort, but I don't know. Again, the powers that be are not on Nigel Farage's side. No, again, he's an enemy.
Jesus type thing vibe going on with Nigel.
The interesting thing, though, is the government has announced that they are going to look at this, and I think it's...
So it will all be sorted then.
Yeah, but no, in a way, I think you're right.
She's on it, guys.
In a way that you are right that Nigel's won, because this is now firmly in the debate. This isn't going away.
It's happening anyway.
And it was happening anyway. And the one thing that I found quite interesting about all of this story, it wasn't necessarily Nigel having his bank account taken away. It was the fact that somebody from Coots was leaking to a senior BBC journalist the details of his bank account. How?
No,
How is that a thing? I just don't understand.
So, Pete, I agree that was awful, but I actually think there was something even worse about it, which is about the hatred in politics, because there's a great feeling now, no, say this is a serious thing, a great feeling that if you disagree with somebody, they must be evil and you must destroy them. As far as I'm concerned, to watch people who were cock-a-hoop about this man having his life destroyed just because they disagreed with him is a very worrying development. But anyway, we do need to ask the question as to whether the debanking, the attacks on Nigel Farage include Greg's. Is it true or false?
No, it's got to be false. I'd be so upset if it was true. We've got to say false.
Yeah, let's go false. We don't think this one's
absolutely false.
Hey.
The owner of Greg's, Gregory Gregson, remains a big fan. I just literally made that fact up. It's a hashtag fake news. Send it to the BBC fake news department or whatever that is.
Verify.
Verify.
Yeah.
Apparently Verify being sued for lying.
Excellent. Who's going to verify them?
Okay, talking of the BBC have been accused of hypocrisy because their climate... Right, stop. Right, okay. Well, I've got to ask the question. Okay, I'll tell you what makes me laugh. You're going to say true now, aren't you? I'll tell you what we'll do. Let me just say the question, then you say the words true. Okay. The BBC have been accused of hypocrisy because their climate editor flew to Spain to talk about the dangers of climate change. Is it true or false?
True.
True! I just love the fact that the BBC are hypocrites, just solicited the answer true before we even got a chance to really ask the question. But anyway, what are the scores, Woke Wabbit?
I'm feeling fantastic.
Why are you feeling fantastic?
I watched the Barbie movie.
Oh, God. I bet you loved it, didn't you?
Well, I actually really didn't like it.
Oh, why not?
It's just a sexist film. It promotes, like the ideal stereotypical women's body image, all that stuff, and it just promotes the patriarchy.
So do you not like attractive... do you not like attractive blonde women?
Not particularly.
Oh!
I'm over here.
Okay, so what are the scores?
10 points for Peter and Ems, and 20,000 points for Lois. And
he's a creep. Go away. Out. Don't worry. Next week, I will bring my mace spray. Okay, so St. Paul's Cathedral has been turned into a mosque. Is it true or false?
God, I don't...
It's going with a trend that is plausible. I don't think it is true.
I don't think it's...
They are changing the Trocadero.
The Trocadero,
into a mosque, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
No.
So that's like, for the people who aren't from London, Trocadero is in Piccadilly. It's a very famous London building. It used to be a music hall, and now it's full of like restaurants and things. And it's the old cinema that they're converting over 3 floors into a mosque. But it's been done by the guy called Mr. West End. I can't remember his name, but he's like a multi-billionaire.
Hang on, it's not Paul Raymond.
No.
No, he's a little bit dead.
It's a little bit.
It does hinder his business enterprises.
There's a younger one. There's Paul Jr. apparently. No, he's not building a mosque.
It's quite interesting, really, this story, because there's been plans to have a main central mosque in London for quite some time, and it's been knocked back again and again and again. And it's interesting that now that Westminster Council is controlled by the Labour Party, that this has suddenly been passed through. But I can't imagine this is going to go down very well. I'm expecting a lot of legal challenges. I'm expecting a lot of protests over this.
It's a slightly odd location to choose
is.
as
I
well,
think it's
considering
a really
the other businesses around it. They don't really chime with the local area.
Well, it actually isn't, and let's not get into the whole Dame Shirley Porter situation, but the reality is that part of Westminster is absolutely full of council tenants, many of whom are recent migrants to the UK.
Yeah, I do think that's probably why it's been picked, but I think you make a really good point. If you like around that area, it's full of chain restaurants, it's people on nights out, it's not exactly keeping in fitting with with traditional Islamic views and things.
But you do need to pray quite a few times a day.
Yeah.
So if you're out and about, and I suppose it's central.
Yeah.
I've got to say to you,
mixing the two cultures. It's all about integration and inclusion.
I just want to say one thing to the Muslim community of London. Having walked around Soho at 5 in the morning, I guarantee you, do your morning prayers at home.
Yeah.
Do your morning prayers at home. You just don't want to see it.
Is that the bikini cage?
Yeah. That's when we run into each other.
Let's not not discuss the bikini
But
cage.
you got out eventually, didn't you?
Just about.
Okay, so has St Paul's Cathedral been turned into a mosque? Is it true or is it false?
It's false. It's false.
Absolutely false! Once again, thanks to our friends from the Upper Lip website who've been making up all sorts of garbage that we've been reading out on this show. And to be fair, other TV channels have read them out as well, but believe them to be true.
That was The Woke That Was, continues after the break. Welcome back to That Was The Woke That Was.
The Tories may ditch their green policies in order to win votes. Is it true or is it false?
I think the Tories are just allergic to winning votes, so I'm going to say false.
Yeah, that's got to be the worrying thing, Charlie, because if the Conservatives now are dumping green policies, it must mean that they're unpopular.
Can we please call them this Conservatives rather than Conservatives in general? Because I seem to remember the certain manifesto being quite popular when we won.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a real concern, isn't it, Pete, for everybody? Because we look at 2019, we look at that amazing landslide victory by the Conservatives, really popular in Northern England, where you and I are from.
The Conservatives can ditch the net zero stuff, but you can't ditch all environmental policy. And I think what people really want when they see environmental policy, they want things like rewilding, they want things to do with live animals and things like that. I think the problem is net zero has become all of environmental policy, and I think that's where this has gone terribly wrong for the government.
Well, this is the interesting thing. Environmentalism itself is a conservative idea because, I mean, part of the reason I'm a conservative is because I grew up in the countryside and I love nature, right? But I mean,
naturism.
Not quite.
I was waiting for
Calm
that.
down, Andre. Come on, carry on.
But this is the interesting thing. When you look at the policies that are used by progressive types to enforce environmentalism, it's 15-minute cities and so on. And it's the imposition of it's cameras, it's fines and so on. It's not planting trees and rewilding.
No, it's neo-Marxism using the green agenda.
Yeah.
I might add as well, just very quickly, that anything that loses the Tories' votes is a good thing in my book because they need to be utterly destroyed.
That's an interesting question, isn't it? My dad believes that the way to improve conservatism in this country is to destroy the Conservative Party. But you have to say, everything that you say about the current Conservative Party, Keir Starmer wants to make it even worse if he gets into power.
Say that.
Most MPs stood on this manifesto, so didn't have a problem with any of these policies at the time, and now when it's looking like electoral disaster for this version of the Conservative Party, they're grasping at every single straw and floating from one extreme of the party to the other extreme of the party.
But the popularity of Boris Johnson Conservatives was the Brexit thing, which, by the way, is why I absolutely love them. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff was overlooked, wasn't it, in 2019?
I think that actually that's being a little bit disturbing to the general public. I think the Brexit issue was a big thing, as was Boris Johnson's personality as well. But there were a lot of other sort of red wall-friendly policies that people really appreciated.
Infrastructure, things like that. We want to know whether the Tories have ditched their green policies in order to become more popular and win more votes. Is it true or false?
It's false.
It's actually true.
It's true. It's true.
It's true, but they haven't. Yeah, it's a lie.
They are saying... Sorry, let me just...
Ostensibly true.
Let me just clarify what this question actually should read. Have the Tories claimed?
Claimed.
Yes,
Okay, fine.
True. Yes.
It is absolutely true! Get your head on. It's the woke wabbing! Go on, put your head on. Whoa, boy, mate, don't get too close to me either. Right, I just want to know, what are you up to now?
I was going to go to a protest, but I don't get what the problem is with all of this green stuff. I've got an electric car. My parents bought it for me. I don't get why you guys can't just get your parents to buy you electric cars.
buy us a house as well. Why are these people moaning about mortgages and deposits? I mean, what's wrong with them?
That's what I'm saying. That's why
exactly.
And it's to help the environment, so just get over it.
Your girlfriend Chris Cedar and Tarquin and all your mates.
I love Sebastian. Okay, but what are the scores?
5 points for Peter and Ems.
That's gone down.
And a million points for Lois.
Hey! Off. Okay, muted applause for the woke rabbits there. Okay.
I don't know, I'm becoming quite fond of him.
Well, he'll be willing to have you. Okay. Network Rail has spent £10,000 a week on plane flights because it's cheaper than taking the train. Is that true or is it false?
Oh my God.
I bet it's true.
I think this is true, actually. It was a Freedom of Information request, if I remember rightly. I think it was from The Sun. and it turned out that like there's 72 flights between London and Glasgow, and spending thousands of pounds on flights rather than on trains. And I'm just like, well, what do we expect? We've been messing around with transport policy and trains in this country for decades because nobody will make a goddamn decision on it. And it's infuriating now.
Also, they're always on strike, so
that's
they're probably screwing themselves
Well,
over.
I loved the response that you got from Network Rail, like where the poor press people that they have to shove out and say, defend this. And they said, oh, well, our policy is always to find the cheapest possible way of doing something. And I was like, not really the line you should go with.
Not really, no.
I've got to. I must admit, I once did a Freedom of Information request on the Independent Parliamentary Standards Authority, which is the fees office, asking whether a larger female MP used to buy 2 seats on the train, 1 per cheek, and they refused to answer.
But no,
I wanted my freedom to know whether each cheek had to have a separate seat.
Well, cheek by jowl.
Yay! It wasn't Tessa Jowl.
That would be quite good, wouldn't it?
It wasn't Tessa Jowl.
No, but honestly, this is. It doesn't surprise me that this is a thing, but it's just one of those
This is something that's become really, really interesting because of the level of competition in the aviation industry and the lack of competition in the rail industry. Actually, it's just inevitable that prices will fall for flights.
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. We talk about having privatised rail in this country. I was like, where? Like, if somebody could tell me where we have it, I'd absolutely love it.
But I'll tell you what annoys me more than anything else. There was something called open access. It was one of the few EU policies I actually agreed with, what was it they were going to do? You were going to get to London Euston, they were going to go your Air France service to Wigan or whatever, or your...
Air France to Wigan?
Air France to Wigan, yeah, absolutely. Air France wanted to launch trains, didn't they?
Yeah, they did at one point.
And you're going to have 5 different train services competing, and they said, oh, there's no room on the track. Well, by the time you get to the northwest of England, there's only 4 trains an hour on the West Coast main line.
I mean, on a Sunday, there's none.
I want to get Air New Zealand to Bolton.
Air New Zealand to Bolton. That is absolutely genius. But the reality is, that idea of having different trains operating from the same stations and competing against each other just never happened.
Yeah, and it's the fact that train companies aren't really that responsible for the upkeep of the track, which is why Network Rail itself exists. And it's just one of these kind of one foot in one camp, one foot in another, and it's just caused a whole mess.
The railways are not really privatised in any meaningful sense.
Right, okay.
And actually all that happens is there is a small amount of privatisation, which was that they asked people who operated the trains to have private sector contracts.
I feel like it's a nod to privatisation.
Yeah.
So you can say you've done a Tory policy and then you can get the votes for it. But actually, in reality, it hasn't made a blind bit of difference.
Okay. No, absolutely not. OK, well, has Network Rail spent 10 grand a week on flights? Is it true or false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true.
Hey!
OK, Elon Musk has rebranded Twitter as X.
Do you think it's because a lot of the people that are on social media are illiterate? So they're just signing their name X and it makes sense. Like Baldrick when he wants to stand for Parliament and he puts an X. And they say, oh, what's your name? What's your first name? He said, oh, I don't know. And he said, well, it might be Sod Off. Yeah. And he said, why is that? And he said, well, when I was a kid, I used to say, hello, I'm Baldrick. And they used to go, yeah, we know Sod Off Baldrick. So he goes, yes, Mr. S. Baldrick.
It's another example of getting rid of the animal welfare policy. I think they are in cahoots with Bush on this.
No, but...
Sorry, cahoots?
Should I be the nerd and explain this one?
Go on then.
Okay, so this...
Sorry, Pete, as if you weren't expected to do that.
Okay, so this is actually on Elon Musk's big plan to have what's known as the Everything app. So what's actually going to happen under this new brand is it's going to be video messaging, it's going to be audio stuff, it's going to be Twitter, it's going to be like a PayPal service, it's going to be all involved. It's basically what Elon Musk wants to have his own version of WeChat, which is in China, where it's just one app that does everything.
Very easy to be cancelled.
And this is kind of like the first kind of rollout of it. And I just find it interesting how everyone on Twitter has lost their minds over it. And I'm like, why do you care what this company's called? Like, it makes no difference to your life whatsoever. No. And everybody has just gone mental over it. And it's such a fake outrage because it's just, oh, you don't like Elon Musk. And that's all it is.
Well, it literally is that. I mean, again, the progressive types regard Elon Musk as their enemy. So, because if it was their guys in control, they'd be thrilled
Yeah.
about this. They'd
Yeah.
support the extra branding, and they'd love the idea of the everything app.
What will you be?
It's him in control.
What will you be called? What will you call tweeting now? Xing.
I think they are called X's.
Sounds a
I think
little
that's
bit-
what they're going to be.
No
called.
way.
I think they're called X's.
I X'd my
Yeah,
girlfriend.
they're going to be called
It's
X's.
better than tweeting your boyfriend's ex.
Yeah.
When you've had too much to drink. Not that I've ever done that.
Have you ever sent a text message to the person you were talking about?
Yes, I've
all
done
the
that.
time.
I
All the
know, I
time.
have done
Can't believe what Bob did. He's such a knob.
And made even worse with the voice recognition as well.
Well, I suppose-
I always get very worried that if you're talking about someone, then
It's
voice
gonna go to
recognition
them.
will end up calling
Yeah.
them. You'll leave a voicemail.
And this has also come on the back of Meta, who own Facebook and Instagram, launching Threads, which has been their new version of Twitter, which apparently they paid influencers hundreds of thousands of pounds to go mental about how much they loved this thing. And as some of the things I was reading, I was like, yeah, you've made it really obvious you were paid to basically post this, and it's just like Instagram but on Twitter. I don't really see the point of it. It had the highest level of sign-ups in social media platform history, and now nobody's talking about it at all.
Okay.
It was somewhat of a flash in the pan. Whether it's going to survive, I don't know. But
No,
again, this
all
was
money
all
shot.
anti-Elon Musk. That's all this is.
Wasn't Threads a TV show about a nuclear bomb in Sheffield?
I thought it was something to do with clothing of thirst.
look at me Threads. Yeah. Look at that. Look at me Threads.
Sustainable clothing.
I thought it's a way that you hype your face up.
So, has Elon Musk rebranded Twitter as X? Is it true or is it false?
I think it's true.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true!
Hooray!
Okay, President Zelensky has trademarked his own name so he can launch products including toilet brushes and underwear. Is it true or false?
Oh, it's got to be false. I don't like making fun of President Zelensky. I think he's brilliant. But, I mean, you think it's true?
No, I know it
No
is.
way.
It's true.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Well, it's
for me.
interesting,
I do
though.
read the news.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, though, because I actually don't think it was done so he can launch his own stuff. I think it's done so people don't profit off his
They
name.
always say that.
Yeah. But no, so like,
By the way, Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I remember Meghan attempting something like this. She wanted to go for Sussex Royal, didn't she?
Yeah.
And then the Royal Sussex Hospital kicked off.
Yeah, but no, so Zelensky's put this in for things like, ironically, in things to do with armaments and the military, so you can't have like the Zelensky bazooka or whatever. And then also on things like alcohol brands and stuff like that.
The
there's a bit
Zelensky
of stuff-
cocktail as opposed
Yeah.
to a Molotov cocktail. 'Cause
Yes.
that would have the spirits and the weapons of mass destruction, wouldn't it?
But no,
I'll
so
tell you what,
it's all that kind of
They
stuff.
wouldn't,
that
they
this is
wouldn't
to
be
do with.
launching a White Russian, would
Yeah. But no,
Black
if
Russians
he
with
was
Jack
smart, he
Daniels.
would do. But no, so I think that's more what this is, apparently. But it was done back in, paperwork apparently went in for it back in October. So it's taken a while for it to come through. But I don't, in a way, I don't really blame him. You know, if people, the idea of somebody profiting off your name is.
But Pete, let's be honest.
Mate.
Vladimir Putin has attempted to advance a narrative that effectively they're both as bad as each other, but Zelensky's just a sort of hyped up media. I was going to use the H word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And this really does. That really does assist with this, with this W word.
It's
Sorry.
W.
Yeah, no, you are right that it does
Unless
bleed
you're
into that
Scottish,
narrative.
you
Of
are.
course it does, and I think this is probably to do with what he'll do once all this is ended. But it's just one of those things. I'm very much on his side. Like, I quite like Zelensky. I don't mind him that much.
Well, can I offer a criticism of Zelensky, right? The first thing is, I've spent a lot of time in Eastern Europe, and you have to say the level of racist abuse over there is significantly higher than in the UK. Community relations tend to be generally quite poor. The Russian minority in Ukraine was discriminated against. And there's one thing you can say. Vladimir Putin would be in prison if he was the British Prime Minister, but so would Zelensky, because Zelensky's exoneration of his boss over a £5 billion bank heist means, you know, this whole concept of goodies and baddies is not necessarily as safe as we think it is.
Yeah, we shouldn't put people on pedestals. I don't know how many times we have to learn, but eventually they get knocked off. I don't understand why we continue to do that.
Just like the bank in Ukraine got knocked off.
But no, you are right. Yes, he's not any kind of saint, but When we look at
He
the
also
balance
said-
between the two.
He also, Zelensky, I always think, Charlie, sounds a bit like a robot. Send us our planes and we'll do the work.
Yeah,
It's like, nobody's talked like that since Stephen Hawking died.
Yeah, he's got quite a distinct style about him, doesn't he? But this, I mean, this story has it's actually got a very sort of American flavour to it.
Yeah.
The
It
whole
does feel
idea
very
of,
American,
of selling your name, you know, in a kind of capitalistic way, which is, I don't know, one among many American fingerprints all over this war.
Apparently there's a meat grinder called a Zelensky meat grinder, which I thought that was a little on the nose, if I'm being honest. That's a bit...
Literally and figuratively,
But sometimes people can do stuff really distasteful. The most distasteful thing I ever saw, and I've been deadly serious about this, that pub in the East End of London where Jack the Ripper operated from, somebody opened a Jack the Ripper themed strip club, right? and because of copyright, it was very, very hard to stop this person doing it.
Yeah, I worked there for about a week.
Yeah, that's quite...
How do you know about that?
No, but
how do you know about that? Andre?
Loved it. But on a serious note, that's why you end up with the Zelensky meat grinder, which I also think is fairly distasteful.
Is that what the girls did at their strip club?
Oh. Get out of it. Right, OK. So is it true or false that Zelensky has trademarked his own name and now has the right to produce toilet brushes and underwear, amongst other tasteful products? Is that true or false?
Yeah, sadly, it's true.
It's absolutely true!
Hooray!
OK. To decide who is the winner, it's our scorekeeper extraordinaire. It's the Woke Wabbit!
Hey!
Hey. What are the scores?
Unfortunately, Peter and Ems, you're on 0 points.
I feel like there's some kind of bias adjudicating here.
And Lois is now on 100 million points.
Oh. Anyway, the final question to ask us, congratulations to Lois and to Charlie. Thank you to Ems and indeed to Pete. But one final question to ask you, Woke Wabbit. Have you enjoyed the show?
Not particularly. Well, it's just been horrible, you know, offensive towards President Zelensky.
Do you think there should be Zelensky underpants?
I'm wearing them right now.
Oh, my God. Well, thank you so much. Congratulations to our winning team. Thanks, Lois and to Charlie. Thank you so much to Pete and to Ems. Right, I'm off now to stop a Just Stop Oil protest. I'm going to hit.
Oh, my God!
No, not like that. Not like that. It's like the Terminator.
I'm Mike Graham and this is TalkTV. You know what we're going to do now, don't you? It's Plank of the Week time. We do it every Friday night. It goes out at 7 p.m. and you don't want to miss it. Do you know why? Because it includes all of the people that you love to hate. It might even include some of the people that you love to love. It might be Harry and Meghan. It might be Sadiq Khan. It could be a football team. It could be the Prime Minister. It could be the Leader of the Opposition. It might even be someone up in Scotland. You never know. Watch us every Friday, 7 p.m.